Hey guys, this is Jay here from Gymaware. Really hope you're enjoying Coach Mayor's podcast series so far. Here at Gymaware, we've just released our brand new VBT product, Flex. So I just want to give you a bit of insight into what it is and how it could help you as a coach or athlete. Flex uses brand new laser optic technology to measure barbell velocity, so like Gymaware, it's highly accurate. The device connects straight to your iPhone or iPad. We've had an independent validation study to confirm that Flex is highly accurate. We have loads of awesome features already, and our experienced development team continues to work on software updates each and every day. Key performance metrics are available, including both peak and mean velocity, peak and mean power, distance, bar position and bar path. If you guys want any more information on Flex, velocity-based training, just be sure to reach out, go to our website, check us out on socials as well. But for now, we hope you enjoy the rest of Coach DeMayo's podcast.
The world of strength and conditioning is filled with some fantastic practitioners that are always searching for more. But more what? What are strength and conditioning coaches searching for to better their ability to prepare their athletes? Well, what about cutting-edge information, or a place where you can find different opinions from forward-thinking coaches on what you're doing, how you're doing, and try to get feedback to be better for your athletes? Or what about a place where you'll find like-minded coaches that can provide solid coaching advice and career development for you as you progress through your career as a strength and conditioning professional? Well, this is exactly why we built the Strength Coach Network. You'll have access to exclusive monthly content on top of the sensationally active forum that we have, where you can communicate with coaches all over the world to find those answers that you're looking for to help you be a better practitioner for your athletes. So make sure you hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPs, that's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS, and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 92nd episode of Outside the Rack, brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of Gymaware. In this show, we're just going to try to dive a little deeper in the minds of the top practitioners in the world of sport performance to learn a little bit more about who they actually are and how they got to where they are today. Today, we are joined by the assistant strength and conditioning coach at Georgia State University, Vinnie Calautti. Vinnie, man, thanks for being with us, brother.
Thanks for having me again, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. It's good to catch up. I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad things are good down there in the A, but before we get going too far, brother, who is Vinnie?
Hey, man, it's one thing that I actually, we had our little talk before this. I kind of wish my beard was a little bit more cleaned up like yours. Mine's all, I got the mask beard right now, but hey, man, I'm a blue collar guy. I like to, decompress when I need to. There's really nothing much to me except for, I love to help people. I love to help my players, family, friends. I'm always kind of a phone call away to everybody. Being away from home for now 7 years, made me realize even more how much important family is to me. But being home this past week, I got married, made me remember, the roots that I come from. And everyone kind of makes fun of me because, I come from the city and I love like the gritty, smelly, gasoline filled air and like dead trees. And there's only 3 trees on the road, but they haven't had leaves for 20 years. And it just doesn't look like a nice place. And I feel like, that's me. Like, I'm a gritty dude. I care about my family, and that first and foremost is everything to me. But yeah.
Yeah, but I think that the gritty dude, there's a lot of good to that. The people that have had to go through it a bit to understand that there's a lot of good even in those dead trees.
Oh yeah, like I feel like you build character when you go through things. I think that's when your character really flourishes. And by no means was my upbringing some horror stories or anything like that, but when you have to when you grow up in a blue collar city with a blue collar family, and you got to manage things, you got to budget things, unforeseen things happen, whether it's friends that have passed away from circumstances that you just can't fathom or understand because they're just it's all of a sudden. And then you see, financial struggles from your family. You see friends struggle. I think when you go through those types of events in life, it's really hard to build thickness of skin, in my opinion, in any other way. Like, we get a chance. I love the idea of, like, people say that, we're grinders in our profession. We do this, we work 16-hour days. Yes, we do. We work those long hours. We ain't construction workers. We're not union workers. We're not working for the T. We're not, doing these hard manual labor jobs that they're doing for 12 to 14 hours. Like, we come to work like this. We each got a t-shirt on. We got shorts on. We're able to talk in the middle of a day when, some of us start our day at 6 a.m. Well, those dudes start their day at 4 a.m. And that means they're getting up at 3, they're getting to the work site at 4, so it's, I think sometimes we overhype, the grittiness of our field, and we, don't give credit to, some events that might have happened in some previous life where, guys have had men or women have had to battle through things. And, our job is not as hard as we perceive it to be at times.
I think that that's probably one of the best lines I've heard, man. Is I think that a lot of the time we really do like to, uh, I don't even know what the word is, like exaggerate, but like more like make it like it's like a hero status
Oh yeah.
with all of that. And it's, and I'm sure that, the younger kids in the game that hear me talk about these things all the time, I'm sure that this gets old, but I think that that's something that you need to be in it for a while to actually understand what that means. And you need to have gone through some things when it comes to understanding like the truth and the reality of the situation.
Mhm.
Which is why I'm pretty stoked to hear number one, bro, because I think that from going through the stops you've been to and as your career has gone with some of the great mentors you've had, I'm sure you've had a few of these. If you wouldn't mind, describe a learning situation that brought about an epiphany in your career.
So the one that kind of really stuck out to me more than anything, I've like you said, I've been blessed to work for some great coaches and meet some great coaches. And this coach, he's not, I wouldn't call him a mentor of mine. I'd call him a friend. We, when we see each other, we have good conversations. We'll have a beer, we'll hang out and talk shop. But about 7 years ago, Perform Better seminar in Rhode Island, a really good one if you're in New England or if you're going to travel to New England. They usually have it in June. Great seminar put on by them. Was Todd Wright first talked about the foot. And I only say that it's the biggest epiphany for me is because the sport I work in is basketball. The sport we work in is basketball. And everything that we see and do, our biggest injuries that occur most often have to do with the foot, have to do with the ankle. And how he broke it down, from the mechanics of the foot. And, you don't really think about, those small ligaments and muscles of that happen in that area because you're constantly worried about the glutes and you're worried about hamstrings, you're worried about quads, you're worried about thoracic rotation. You're basically worried about everything from the knee up. And I feel like the last 7 years, people have been really paying attention to the ankle and the foot. And it's probably been even more so the last 2 years because of all the information that has come out. And it really kind of like put a light bulb on me because not to say there's always every injury is a little different. If you have, a knee issue, even though you might have quad tendonitis, it might be different from someone else's, even though it is the same injury, the mechanisms could be different. But every single time I have to get a kid back from some type of, whether it's an overuse or a pattern is not working well, I always go to the foot first. I always retest. I'll do something with the foot, whether it's the big toe, whether it's just foot mechanics, short foot. For some reason, every time I do something with the foot, every single time, I always get a result. I always get a positive result. Sometimes it's less than others, but I always get some type of change. And to me, that's like, okay, you use that old saying of, you got trees grow from the ground up. Well, our bodies is the same way. If we don't fix those mechanics in the foot, it doesn't matter the mobility drills, it doesn't matter the mechanic drills, unless you get your foot mechanics on point, you're still going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again. You might have fixed it, you might have fixed rotation in the T-spine, but if you're jogging or running with excessive rotation, you know, is that because you don't have good quality foot mechanics? Is that because you don't have good dorsiflexion? Is that because you can't pronate when you're trying to explode? Like, a lot of that for me opened my eyes, because like I'm doing all this rotation and yes, I feel good, but then eventually it stops. And then he taught me in one of his talks, and I'm pretty sure it's probably still live somewhere. If not, it's definitely on YouTube. When you really look at those mechanics, you really see how it works. Unless you fix that problem, you're just putting a band-aid on it. And to me, that is been the biggest game changer when it comes to even building strength and getting them, we had recently talked, our whole early off-season program, I have our guys for 3 weeks. Everything is done barefoot. Everything is done without the shoes. Socks can stay on, but everything is done without shoes or anything like that. We go barefoot because we don't really use those muscles. When you think about when you injure your hand, you got to strengthen those fingers and you do things like that. Well, why is it that if we have an issue with our foot, we put a heel lift in it? The body was made in a certain way. So if you have a high of an arch, it was probably for a reason. So is there something that we can do to kind of get you to pronate better? Because the muscles can still do it. It's not like it can. It's just a matter of it was made in a different way. But we put arches on there, and then we wear sneakers all the time. So all those sensory neurons on the bottom of the foot are not as active because they're dulled out. You see all these sneakers, they're like 1.5 inches thick. And we can't figure out why when we wear like minimalist shoes or shoes that have very little cushion, or if you go barefoot, we can't figure out why that's harder. It's harder because you're using those smaller muscles and they're not used to be using. You're not pushing against a cushion. So that was the biggest epiphany. And it's hard to differentiate because, learning so much from Coach Boyle, learning a ton from Coach Harris, Coach Williams, Coach Connors, Coach Melton, who, shout out to Coach Charlie, national championship, couldn't happen to a better coach with all he's done there. Like, I've learned from all these great people, but hearing Todd explain the foot and why it was important 7 years ago, and I'm like, I've had a lot of ankle injuries, in high school and in college, and I'm like, you know what? There is something to what he's saying. Do more research, and it just kind of like really piqued my curiosity. And now it's crazy because now the last 2 years, it's like everyone talks about the foot. Before, oh no, it's it's whatever. Last 2 years, somebody who's blue checked, or somebody who's a lot more in the public view says something about the foot, and now everybody's like, oh yeah, the foot, man, that's the real important thing. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of people that have been talking about this for years, but because they don't have a social media presence, it didn't really catch fire. So
yup. And I think what's crazy with that is two parts. It's really important to have your kind of go-to starting point. Like, with some people, it's the opposite, right? With some people, they're going to look at breathing. With some people, they're going to look at core function or how you brace and all of this stuff, like Christine just spoke about. But I'm with you, man. Like, one of my first things is get them out of their sneakers, roll through the warm-up, start lifting without them. And I don't know what it is, but for a lot of them, it does a lot of really good things.
Oh yeah.
Now, it's not a cure-all.
No.
It's not a fix for everything. So everybody's sitting here with the outliers or your specific situations that are like, that's all BS because of this one specific thing. Well, thanks. Congratulations. You found an outlier. It's the same thing when people say, like we were talking earlier, it's like trying to say you need to do things like LeBron. Like it's an outlier.
Mhm.
The N of ones are N of ones.
Mhm.
But if you don't have that place where you're going to start, there's no way to be able to find out what the final destination is.
It's just one piece of the puzzle. And PRI it does a great job. I love like I do a lot of breathing mechanics. FRC is great. I've done FRC since they kind of started becoming big when I was at BU. That was about 5-6 years ago, and then they blew up. Um, Coach Bishop, Alan Bishop at Houston, put out a question. I forget what the overall question was, and it was like 2 weeks ago, and it had more to do with like mobility and things like that. Oh no, it had more to do with like things in strength and conditioning that sometimes we talk about in absolutes. And we talk about, someone's so and so's hips are tight, so and so's this is tight, or it's immobile. And then you mentioned core functioning. More times than not, it's a core functioning issue. It's not really that someone's tight in their hips. It's not really, and more times than not, it's from a nervous system. They don't know how to properly engage, create tension, exude force. So that's what creates someone who's has lacking mobility. But it's like you said, for me, I always start at the foot. If people want to know where I go from there, I go foot, breathing, and then capsule work. Foot, breathing, core, and then capsule work. I kind of count core and capsule work in the same, because with doing capsule work, you're gonna have to engage. You're gonna have to increase tension when you want to make a change in mobility. You can do all these fancy stretches and this and that, but unless you actually apply force, ain't nothing gonna change. It's the old saying, a pressure cuts diamonds. It happens because of force that happens on that rock. If you want to create a change in a joint, if you want to create muscle change, if you want to increase muscle, you have to apply the needed force for that adaptation. Um, but for me, it's my starting point. It's where I always go, and then it's like I said, I always get some result, whether it's dramatic or whether it's just a little bit, and then I know, like, okay, I got a little bit there. I did what I needed to do. Now I'm going to move on. It's never the end all be all. I don't think there's any absolute or end all be all statement in our profession whatsoever. There is a million ways to skin a cat. We've heard that from the beginning of time. Like you said, some situations are better than others. You might find an outlier where, I did all this big toe work and nothing happened. Okay. I've done a ton of core work. I've done a ton of breathing work. And sometimes things didn't happen because that wasn't what was needed in that scenario.
Yeah. And in order to be able to find out or to come to those conclusions, you've got to be inquisitive enough to continue to ask questions and continue to dig and to continue to not be okay with just being okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to number 2, buddy. If Vinny could ask one question and he knows he's going to get the answer to it, what would that question be and why?
So from a strength and conditioning standpoint, and I think we all kind of would like to know, what is the utmost optimal way to train an athlete? Like, if there was a blanket program, what is the most optimal way? What is it? Is it a combination of modalities? Is it a combination of VBT? Is it a combination of concurrent training systems, conjugate? Is it just one system? Because in every single research paper that we have seen, we see positives for undulating that say this is the best, but then we also see other papers that say, no, it's not the best, linear is. No, it's not the best, conjugate is. VBT is good if you have this prerequisite. Conjugate is good if you have this, but there's always an if, like we just said, there is always a situation where it might not be optimal. I would love to know what is the most optimal one we can do at all times with everything. Maybe I can stop reading books if someone just told me that, because I don't know about a lot of coaches out there. I use a multitude of programs to work with my guys. Some guys do auto regulation because that's what they're on. Some guys do more tempo work than others. Some guys are undulating. For me, I think in the sport of basketball, I like undulating better, mainly because coaches, sport coaches, and we've all had them, they're up and down. Undulating allows you that flexibility because if you know they're going to be up and down, it allows you that already implanted in the periodization. And I know that's a topic that periodization is a waste of time. I still think it's no. There's periodization, and then there's having, and to me that means having a plan. Will I divert from the plan? Yes, but my goal is still the same. My goal might still be strength speed on that day. It might be strength on that day. It might be speed strength. I'm going to plan for it. I still use the word periodization. I know other people like to say planning, but to me they're two the same. And then my other answer would be for life. I would love to know what is the absolute key to happiness. Someone growing up, for how I grew up, money was always something that we needed more of. So, some people would say, having a lot of money would be happy. And then you might talk to somebody who has a lot of money and they say, I have a lot of money, but because I did the things I needed to do, because I worked X hours and I was dedicated to my profession, to my business, I don't have the relationships that I wish I had from somebody else. So what is that balance? Is there an optimal number? Like if you told me, hey man, you can make, I don't know, you can make 150K and have X amount of, social relationships, family, kids. This is the optimal number. The optimal number is 2 kids, 150K, $350,000 house, whatever that number is, whatever that scenario is. Someone told me this is the scenario where you are going to be optimally happy. You'll be able to have time with your kids, with your wife. You'll be able to travel. To me, that's what I love to know. What is the key to happiness? What is the optimal scenario for me to be happy?
The last one's going to be hard to answer, man.
Yeah.
I dig it, though.
Ain't nobody going to know.
No, not at
I
all.
think that's what we all want to be happy.
Mhm.
Don't nobody want to wake up and be pissed off all day. Like that's just not a way to live. And there's levels to happiness. Everyone has a different approach of what they feel is happy, whether it's money, whether it's relationships. I don't think people get into our profession. It's that topic. You don't get into strength and conditioning for the money because there isn't a lot of money in it. Like you do have to have a love for what we do, but that doesn't mean we don't want to make more money. That doesn't mean we don't enjoy when to get paid for what we feel our services are deserving of. It just means that, hey man, in the beginning with a master's, you're probably going to start at 40 and you can work your way up and you can make crazy money like some of the guys do in our profession in football, basketball, baseball, and even some hockey strength coaches. Like you could, it's not to say that you can't make that money. It's not to say that you can't do stuff on the side and do what you're doing and not and impacting the next generation and the generation that we live in, and that's going to bring forth some more revenue, speaking engagements. Like there's always ways. Like to me, there's always ways to make more money. It's just when we get into this, it's knowing like, hey, it's gonna take some time. It's whether or not you have the patience to do it and you have the love for what you do, because it's like our last conversation. You don't have experience. Well, I'm not paying you 70 grand if you don't have experience, just because you have a degree. There's a lot of people who have a degree. There's a lot of people who can go to school and can cheat in class and can find ways to get good grades. That don't mean that they're the greatest at what they do. Experience gets you there. So to me, that's just, how it goes.
I dig it, man. And I couldn't agree more with all of that. And I think, though, one thing about what we do is that you've got to have some blue collar to you. You've got to be willing to work and you've got to be willing to put some other things on the back burner to make sure that you're able to take care of everything that is required to do what we do. But I think that one thing as we start becoming closer and closer to being the old heads in the field, we've learned is you've got to have an escape and a way to get back to neutral too.
Oh yeah,
So what's Vinny's escape, bro?
that's crazy, man. Because I was actually thinking about this the other day. I'm going into my 9th season of college athletics. And I couldn't even fathom that I would even get to this point. When I first started, I mean, everybody knew, whether you want to admit it or not, everybody knows who Jay DeMayo is. 10 years ago, they know him even more now because of just what you do for our field. It is widely known, widely respected. And, you know, I think this goes without saying. We all thank you for all the stuff that you do because, again, this is on your own personal time. This is not something you have to do. And, you know, I would hope that, you know, this type of work that you do gives you some gratification knowing that you're impacting everybody else. For me, I love the hoop, man. And when I was at Boston University, we played noon ball 3-4 times a week. And, you know, it was a blast. You know, obviously when the season's on, you know, you don't play as much. You might play once, maybe twice a week. But once the season was over, it was like 3-4 times, whether it was, you know, I was the only strength coach that played. And then it was, you know, the basketball staffs. You got the old heads over there that are 50, 60 years old that are not playing defense. They're just sitting on the offense side, just shooting threes because they no matter how old they get, they're not going to lose that jumper. You know, ECU was great. You know, shout out to my guy, Davon Gordon. He's at University of Pittsburgh. He works with football. You know, me and him had some battles going back and forth. We probably played 2-3 times a week. And then now coming here at Georgia State, same thing. You know, we got, you know, I play with, you know, our head strength and conditioning coach, JD Melhorn. We got a bona fide lottery pick on staff, Coach Jarvis Hayes, who's across the hall from me, who, you know, anytime you want to really go back down to earth, you know, you don't really got to do with him to kind of realize like, yeah, that's what a pro looks like, you know, regardless of, you know, how many years he's been out of the game. So it's always been fun, man. You know, I've always loved playing basketball. You know, the hoops just got up in Atlanta. And so I went down there. I've gone down there now 3 times, and it's been open for about a week and a half. It's just fun, man. It's just, you know, you talk a little smack, you have fun doing it. You know, it's not work. You know, even though like we all say like we love what we do, it doesn't feel like work. You know, at times it does, just because, you know, there's, you know, other stressors that we have to deal with. At the end of the day, we do deal with 18 to 22, 23-year-old kids, and they ain't exactly the easiest people to communicate with when you're trying to, you know, make sure they're not making the mistakes that you made. So that does get frustrating at times. When you have your outlet, and like I said, for me, it's basketball. It's fun, man. It's just something just to kind of take you away. You feel like a kid again. For me, it's just, you know, bringing me back to when I used to play when I was a kid and playing for hours on end. I can't do that. I can't play for hours on end anymore without, you know, going into work the next day and telling my AT, hey, I need to go in the Normatec for about 40 minutes because I played for 2 hours last night. But, you know, it brings you back to when things were pure for me.
That's awesome, man. I think there's something to that purity of just playing the game and,
Yeah.
you know, having fun with it.
Oh yeah. So, and it's always good when you get to play with people who are competitive and they like to play the game. And I've been lucky enough that, you know, everywhere I've gone, there's always at least one guy that's like, nah, man, come on, let's go hoop. But so, you know, shout out to everybody at BU that I played with, Davon at ECU, who's at Pittsburgh now, and JD, who's my coworker here.
That's awesome, brother. Vinny, as always, man, it's great to see you. It's great to catch up. I truly appreciate your time. This is fantastic, buddy.
Thanks, big dog. Appreciate you having me, man. It's always a blast.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll be in touch really soon, pal. Cheers. Thank you.
Appreciate it.